Hello, fellow readers and booktubers. A perennial question among booktubers and just people who read books in general is whether it's beneficial to reread a book or whether rereading books is just a waste of time. And I've seen a lot of posts on BookTube about this. And I thought maybe I could make a tag out of it, an official tag out of it. And in my thinking, an official tag is one that includes prompts. I looked to see if anyone had already done this. I didn't notice anything. And I didn't notice anyone really posting about this recently. If someone has, and you're watching this, I apologize. I'm not trying to steal your thunder or anything. But I've seen a lot of posts about, to reread or not to reread. But here's my attempt to make an official tag about this, including prompts. And so to reread or not to reread, that's the tag. And here are the prompts that I've come up with. Number 1, do you reread fiction? Why or why not? Number 2, do you reread nonfiction? Why or why not? Number 3, if you reread fiction, what kind of fiction are you most likely to choose? Now, of course, when we talk about fiction, that covers a wide, swath of styles and kinds of books. So are you most likely to reread a bestseller or classical literature, genre fiction, which itself covers a wide field? Would you reread fantasy, a science fiction book, a mystery book, a romance, a western, an adventure story? And then the second part of this prompt is, what is your reason for the choice you've made? For example, why would you be more likely to reread a science fiction book than, say, a mystery? Prompt number 4, if you reread nonfiction, what kind of nonfiction are you most likely to choose? And again, nonfiction covers a broad band of different kinds of books. Would you be more likely to reread a history or a biography, an autobiography, a memoir, a book of philosophy, a book of science, a book of theology, or travelogues? And then the second part of this fourth prompt is, what's your reason for the choice you've made? Prompt number 5, if you read a book which has been translated from another language, would you reread the same book with a different translation? Now, this is something that I encounter quite a bit because I do like reading ancient books. And it seems like, every now and then there'll be 2 or 3 new translations of Homer's Iliad or Virgil's Aeneid. And then I have to think about, well, do I want to read a newer translation? There's something different about this translation? There always is. But it's not just, ancient works, a lot of modern works. One of the things I notice is that from time to time, there'll be a book, that'll be, let's say, a bestseller in France. And then they rush a translation of it into English for the English market. But then a few years later, there'll be a newer translation of that same novel claiming that this translation is a little better nuanced than the first translation, because the first translation was made quickly to capitalize on the best-selling status that the book has in its native country. So again, would you go for that? If you've already read a book that's been already translated, a translation of a book that's already been done, and a new translation comes out, would you go for that? Would you reread the book with a different translator's nuances? Prompt number 6, how many times would you reread the same book? Right? Some people go back to the same book over and over again for a whole variety of reasons. Some just for the intellectual stimulation. I know a lot of people reread books almost for sentimental reasons. The reading of a particular book will remind them of the time they first read that book. And it might have been a wonderful time in their life, so they want to kind of return to that from time to time, and so they'll reread the book. And how many times would you keep doing that? What's the most recent book you've reread? And I can tell you the most recent book I've reread, in fact, I'm reading it right now, is a newer translation of the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. I think this is the 4th different translation of that book that I've read, so I've kind of answered 2 of the prompts right there. And then finally, tag some friends. So that's my tag. And again, if any of you have already done this, I'm not trying to steal your thunder. My apologies. Please don't feel that way about it. There's room for all of us here. But this is my version of the to reread or not to reread tag. And that's what I've got for you now. Keep reading, stay well, and take care of yourselves.